So I'm Laura Coleman. I am the founder and director of an environmental arts organisation called Onca, One Network for Conservation in the Arts. We're based in Brighton and we have a gallery space and we run exhibitions and projects which are about using art to think about the environment and our relationship with the environment and how it's changing. Onca and Pangaea started to develop this partnership and think about how we could get a team of artists on board one of their exhibitions, and we thought this one was a really good one because we were having an exhibition about whales at the gallery in association with Whalefest. So we've had a 2-week voyage on board Sea Dragon research yacht, and we were sailing from Iceland via the Faroe Islands to Sweden. And I think what's been so valuable is how the team has worked together. I mean, all the artists, they're very diverse, so their media is very different, so they come at it from very different angles, and I think that's formed a very rich environment on board the boat, an environment with lots of collaborations, lots of possibilities, and lots of really exciting conversations and stories being told.
So you've been in bigger storms than this. I mean, this isn't even a storm. What did you call this little earlier? Sea breeze?
Just an evening breeze.
I've researched the Faroe Islands quite a lot, and I am fascinated by the language and the culture. Very isolated people, and the language goes back. That and Icelandic are the closest to ancient Viking that you can get. And there's a culture of chain dancing and rhyming, some of which is about whales.
So Belinda, what is it?
It is kind of what I thought was lamb, but turned out to be pork. Sort of goulash. Very impressive. I don't think that's quite the tool we need. There is another big spoon. There's another big spoon. Oh, it's in the rice pudding. We need to take it out of the rice pudding.
Oh, those oily colours.
It's not. No, we don't want oily colours. No. I'm just very quickly trying to get rid of the oily colours.
No, that's a bit.
I am going on another expedition with Pangaea Explorations. It's called Expedition with double X. So it's a group of women, 14 women, and we're going to be sailing across the Atlantic to raise awareness for the links between environmental and personal health. So all of us women, we all come from different angles. So some of us are artistic like me, some of us are environmental scientists, sailors, digital experts, health professionals. So it's kind of the aim was to bring together a crew that was as interdisciplinary as possible. So how it's going to work is that each of us, we've had our blood tested, and that all our blood has been sent off to have what's called a body burden analysis, which is testing for the levels of chemicals and toxins in our bodies. And then throughout the trip we're going to be talking about those results and kind of having conversations about what it means about what's inside ourselves and also what's inside the ocean. So alongside that we're going to be trawling for plastic, and we're going to be doing beach cleans we set off in Lanzarote and end up in Martinique. And the idea is that we're going to be talking to young women, so aged 13 to 30, running workshops and discussion groups about consumer choice and what the products we use, what effect that has on our health, and also the health of the oceans.
Art's intention is to give us an emotional experience.
to give us a feeling that's beyond just the average emotion that we feel day to day. Science, on the other hand, is absolutely amazing in its pursuit of information. Trying to figure out how things work in the world, and to that end, we can end up with journals full of information, whether it be numbers, descriptions of things, how things work in the world, things that we can't even see, things that we can't even see with computers or microscopes, just things that we can imagine, but mathematically we know they're there. I mean, science is incredible. So how do you bridge those two gaps? And I think there are very few people or industries, whatever you want to call it, that understand how to do that effectively and in a masterful way, to bridge that gap between science and art, because that is storytelling. And if you can do that, that's an art form. It really is. I mean, teaching is an art form. So when we talk about art and science, sometimes we put them into two totally different categories, and yet they are very compatible. It's just how you approach it. And art can be a painting on a wall, or it can be a way of looking at the world. We live in a world that the amount of information we have access to is almost unfathomable. And what do you do with that? How do you describe that? How do you wrap your brain around some of these things? And that's where art has amazing potential. Again, when you look at the information age we live in, the simple phone that you have in your hand, the amount of access you have. You can look at the sky, see where planets are, and you at the same time can track whales and fish around the world. That information, we have to understand as a culture, what are we going to do with it? What is the next step? Art has always been important culturally. It is one of the things we look at to understand past cultures. Art is going to become more important. I would say as well, just this trip, just the last week and a half, what we've been able to experience. We've traveled in a manner that's old-fashioned. Sure, we have an engine on board. There's an engine there in the background. That's modern. That's science right there for you. That's technology. That's an amazing tool. It's enabled us to do amazing things. We left Iceland and we traveled 1,000 miles to where we are now, which is a huge feat. We didn't just do it in an airplane. We had to understand things like the weather, what was going on around us in our environment, to do it safely, which is, again, a lot of science. But the experiences that we had, science cannot describe. Science can tell us that we're receiving dopamine in our brain when we see a pod of whales right next to the boat, when they're almost playing with our boat. There's lots of dopamine being released in the brain, but that somehow is more of a spiritual experience, which in a way is an artistic experience. And so I'm always searching for a way to describe that to people that have never had that opportunity, because you can't. I'd love to bring everyone out and give them that experience. And for us at the same time, I think we sailed by quite a number of oil rigs in the North Sea. Huge. I mean, essentially each one is a town. They're huge. That's what powers our world. And most people never get to see that. And as ugly in some ways as that is, because they look alien. Oil rigs look extremely alien. It was just as important, I feel like, in this trip to see those as it was to see the whales and to see the beautiful parts of the trip. Because they both represent, again, our civilization, our societies, and the potential directions that we're headed in. What we have is our capacity to think. If you put us up physically against the rest of the animal world, we don't have that much. We have opposable thumbs. Some of us can lift our body weight. Some of us can run more than a mile. But we really don't compare physically. It's our mental capability. And we have so much potential. And not to just leave the door too wide open here and be too vague. But our goal ultimately is survival. And if you don't do things that are positive for your survival, then you should probably change them. And I don't know that we're necessarily doing everything as positively as we could be.